Hello, everyone, and welcome. Oh, my hat's a little askew. Oh, well. Whatever. Mary Alchemist, everyone, and welcome back. And we have a special guest today. Trina is joining us.
Yay!
Hey there, Trina. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to everyone.
Yes, yes. Did everyone have a good day yesterday?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. A lot of rest.
A lot.
Yes.
You got rest?
Yeah, I rest.
Oh, good. Yes.
I've
Well, I
called
did
throughout
rest.
the
I had to play
long
for.
nap yesterday.
How many masses?
I had to play for 5 masses. So
Wow.
It's impressive.
yes, on Christmas Eve at our church, it's a Catholic church. We had mass at 6 p.m., 9 p.m., and then midnight mass. And then on Christmas morning, we also had a 9 a.m. and an 11 a.m. mass. So when that was done, I went over to my brother and sister-in-laws, who always are very kind to host us for Christmas Day, because our family is just churched out at that point. So we don't have to prepare a meal. Had some turkey, had some pasta, and then I had a nap.
Great.
Yes. So that was my day. It was great. Yes. And of course, the grandkids were there too. So.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Trina, you had a good day yesterday?
Yeah, well, I have a cold, and so we kept it very simple. Didn't go visit anyone. Didn't go do anything. Cooked dinner. My husband cooked dinner, and I took a nap.
Even better.
So
Even
sorry to
better.
keep my voice going today. I may be taking sips of coffee here to keep my throat going.
No problem. Well, I have my TARDIS of coffee going here.
Awesome.
Oh, it is a little cold by now. But anyways. So, and Elf Kathy is joining us. And thank you, Elf Kathy, for
Hi, Kathy.
For that special tour you gave us yesterday of the Family History Center.
Yes. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a neat thing. And Chris Ferriolo appreciated that you even gave a special shout out to San Pietro Ameda, his hometown.
Yes,
hometown.
he did.
So that's great. But today we're back on track and we're profiling a wish. And in fact, it's a wish that Trina made and that I fulfilled. And then as we go through it, you'll see there was a whole pile of other rabbit holes I fell down and whatnot. So.
That's what I've been struggling with for 10 years.
Yes, that's right.
10 years. Wow.
Yeah. So let me, actually, I'm going to go straight to the free space. Originally, I didn't create a free space page. I just kept all my research notes on the profile itself. But this morning I realized, actually, I woke up in the middle of the night and thought, that's just silly because it's just so long. So I just took them all and put them on a different page. So the profile itself isn't out of control anymore. So I'm going to share my screen now and take you through what we did. So right up there, Trina. So here we are. So I've created a new free space page for my research on wish number 48. So here is the original wish that Trina made. It's on the profile of her great-great-great-grandfather, Peter Dezel. How does your family pronounce?
My family hasn't pronounced it probably in a couple of generations.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
So I'm winging it as Dezel.
Okay. Someone's got something going on in the background. I'm not sure where the sound is coming from. Is YouTube running on anyone else's other, like a secondary monitor?
No. I don't have one.
Kathy, do you have something else going on in your house there that's...
Not where I'm at. I'm just using my phone.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, it seems a little quieter now. So anyways, I just didn't want, to get out of control. Yeah. So yeah, Peter Dezel is how it was looks like it was spelled, and how later records referred to him as. So triple great grandfather. I'm having a hard time finding a line of the de la Brèche family branch of my French Canadian ancestors. There's so many families that use the same names. If anyone can get me past Peter Dezel's father, Louis, I would be forever grateful. So,
Yes. Could you zoom in, please, Greg?
I can zoom in. Yes, there we go.
Thanks.
How's that? Better?
Better.
Okay. There we go. So there we go. So I worked on this. Stanley Baraboo, or Gerard Baraboo, also helped out. He did some corrections and added some additional things to look at. So I thank Stanley for helping out with that as well. So it's not a surprise, actually. So Peter ended up in Michigan and Monroe County, Michigan, right? Which is if you look at the map of Michigan, it's the very bottom southeast corner. Like it's the most southeasterly county in all of Michigan, and it abuts right next to Ohio. And so a lot of the records sort of go back and forth between Michigan and Ohio. But he wasn't born in the States. He was born in the Quebec area. It was Bas Canada at that time, Lower Canada. So his last name in the records, and most of the records, was Dezel, Deszell. But she refers to de la Brèche. And in fact, one of the things about Quebec records that makes it challenging is that last name, because it goes back and forth. So his actual birth record, his last name is actually Deszell de la Brèche. And many Quebec records from that era and before actually had sort of two last names. They'd have an initial last name. So in this case, his initial last name was actually Deszell, which was spelled E with an accent, Ziel. And then they also appended another nickname to it, and that was the de la Brèche. So D means called by, or also, and so if you were to translate that last name, Deszell de la Brèche, you could sort of translate it loosely as Deszell, also known as La Brèche. So it's like when, if you have a whole bunch of cousins named Patrick, you might say Patrick the Redhead, or Short Patrick, or Tall Patrick, or Red Patrick, like sometimes you do, people give nicknames that way. That's what the Quebecois, or the French Canadians often did, to distinguish different lines, because of course they all had huge families, and so you'd have not a million, but you'd have quite a few people with all the same last name in the same area. And so one way to distinguish one group of them from another group of them was to give them these D nicknames. And so and the funny thing is, well, it's not funny, well, something that can be frustrating is that when you're going through the records, the names can flip around. So sometimes they may be known as Deszell de la Brèche, and the same person could be referred to later on as La Brèche de Deszell, or it could be Deszell by itself, or it could be La Brèche by itself. And so there's at least 4 different combinations. And then when you add the complication that it's a French name into an English-speaking area, and so the spelling is done phonetically at the best of their ability, and depending on how clearly or the name is enunciated or anglicized, you can have. So there are versions of La Brèche that look like La Bruche, La Brèche, La Bruche, and then Deszell with the S and the Z together, with only the one or the other, one L, 2 L's, an I or an E. Like there's just so many combinations. So impressive that you got this far, but not surprising that was a bit of a brick wall to get further. So now, luckily, I have had quite a bit of experience working with Quebec records and breaking down these things, because with the right tools, it actually is not too bad. Here is what the original biography that Trina had for Peter. That he was born in 1838 in Montreal, Canada. Migrated to Lower Michigan in 1850 with his father Louis and brother Oliver as a boy. He was briefly married to Regina, Queen Cousineau. They had one son, Henry Louis. Later, in 1866, he married Catherine de Shetler, whose family lived in Bedford, Michigan, Erie Township. And her family had also migrated from Canada a generation before. When land was affordable, settlers were wanted. They resided in Toledo. Again, that's just sort of across the border, right? More or less. At 903. What's that?
Stone's throw.
Oh, really? Like it's quite literally.
Yeah, I grew up within a mile or two of the border, so.
Wow, yeah. That is so mild.
They're right next. The counties are right next to each other.
Okay, so that makes perfect sense. Where they go in their home, they raised their family, 3 girls and Peter's son Henry. Peter had listed his occupation as teamster and carpenter at different times. I suppose he did whatever work was available. And in his later years, he resided in the home of his oldest daughter, Genevieve. I don't know if did you ever pronounce her name Genevieve?
I have not, and I have an Aunt Jenny who is Genevieve. So
Genevieve, yeah. Catherine preceded him in death by 10 years, his second wife, and he passed away in 1922. His grave can be found at Calvary Cemetery, Toledo, Ohio. So there we go. So that was actually a good start to that really helped out because it gave me a starting place for what the father's name was, gave me an idea of the time frame. Now, the interesting thing about the sources that were attached, the 2 Google Docs, I didn't have. They're not wide open. I would need permissions to get them, and I didn't want to give away too much of my hands, so I didn't actually open and peek into them. But these other ones revealed that there was a family search record for Peter Pierre Dizel. And so there's the timeline of him. Now, this timeline looks slightly different because I've found some records and added to family search profile. So this was very helpful to use sort of as an anchor to go back and forth. Though on many things with family search, you have to always verify the information that was added. But one of the things about when we go to Peter, the first thing I noticed on this profile is that there's an alert note, and that pops up and talks about his date of birth. So, wow. Which is very cool. Someone, O French is the username for this person on Family Search. And I don't know if you have come across O French, if you know who O French is.
I did. I think I messaged him, but or her, and I never heard back. I don't believe, okay. Or I never checked again. I'm not sure.
But O has done a whole bunch of research and indicated that his birth date actually is September 12th, 1840, and baptized in St. Anne Yamashish. And then there's the evidence of it. So turns out that Montreal, December 1838, original thing, there's no record for it, but it was part of, I believe it is part of his, was written on his 1922 death record, which of course means that it's well past the original event, and it's secondhand knowledge or possibly even third-hand knowledge at this point, right?
Yeah, but I think the death record was signed by Oliver, so I kind of
a
little more than a grain of salt is how I took it.
Yeah. So at least he was in the right neighborhood in terms of years and location. So you trust it, as a starting point, but it's not as precise, So and there's that example La Bruche that I was talking about, that name. So, but that helped because then that actually helped me steer me to find the right record. And I can just show you quickly how I did that. So one of the sites I use is called Genealogy Quebec, which is it's actually bilingual. It's in English and in French. And I have it loaded up here in English for you so you can see it. And it has a lot of different tools on it. And in the research, in the free space page, I actually write a bit about these tools so that you'll have that also to refer back to later on. One of the tools that I use a lot is the La France tool. And it allows you to search for records. So this has lots of different Quebec records or French language records, not just Quebec, but also French-speaking Ontario and northeastern United States. I think there's stuff from Acadie, and I think there's also some records that from when they migrated down to Louisiana. I could be wrong in that, but I'm pretty sure that some of those are also in this database. But you can search by individual or by couple. And what I like to do often actually is to search by couple. And you can see here, actually, that was the most recent search I did. So I searched by his father's last name, and you can only put one name in here. So I couldn't put Desiel de Lebrecht. So I just put the first one, Desiel. And then I put his mother's maiden name, Hébert, and that came from, that was listed on the family search. So I thought, well, I'll take that because obviously if someone has done enough research that they've made this detailed note, then chances are this is pretty accurate, or at least it's a good starting point. So I used those, and I used a 20-year time frame around where his birth should be, 1830 to 1850. And then when I do that search, it's going to pull up any records that match, that have both a husband named Desiel with the last name Desiel and a wife with the last name Hébert. Turns out these are all the ones that we want. So the first one I looked at was the 1838, because that was the original birth date that was on the profile. So I'm going to open that up. And that is not our Peter. That is his older sister, Emilie.
Okay.
But if we go to the next one down, the 1840, which was the date that was on the note from the researcher. So let's open that one. And there we have Peter. Pierre, of course, is Peter en français, in French.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's his birth record. And there it is, Yamashish, Sainte-Anne. So the way that the Yamashish is the place, and Sainte-Anne is the parish name or the church name.
Mm-hmm.
And you can actually look at the record here. If I click on this link, then it'll open up the record itself. And so you can read it here. There it is up at the top of this page. But I didn't put a link to this on the profile because to be able to access it, you'd need a paid subscription. So but the good thing is that all of these Quebec records, these Quebec church records, they exist also on Ancestry. So if you have an Ancestry account, you can find this exact same record and this same image with the source material on Ancestry. And you can also find it on Family Search. Now, Ancestry is a little easier to find because the Ancestry records are indexed, just like these ones are indexed. The Family Search ones are not indexed. So what you have to do is you have to open up you have to open it up to the right place and then just sort of navigate through the years until you find it. But if you know exactly the year and the date that you're looking for, then it's just a matter of being strategic and jumping ahead 20 pages or whatever until you find the right one. So so often I will use a paid site like this or Ancestry to find a record, and then I'll try and find the corresponding one on Family Search so I can attach that to the WikiTree profile so that everyone can view it, whether they have a subscription or not. And so let me just, here I am on Peter's. So I'm just going to jump down to the sources, and then you can see. So Family Search has sort of changed the interface just slightly here. So if you wanted to pick a different place, if you click on this, you would change the city. If you click on this one, you can take a different parish inside that city if there was multiple parishes. And then if you click on here, there's actually multiple registers from different year ranges. So this is the year range we want. And here is, oopsie, there's the record we want right there. Now, one thing you'll notice is that this one looks slightly different than that one. And for the purists, in the audience who are wondering why we have two different versions of the same record, because it's obviously the same record. Le 13 de septembre 1840, nous prêtres, blah, 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 blah. Avons baptisé Pierre, né le jour précédent, and then goes on. So that means on the 13th of September, 1840, we, the priest, baptized Pierre, born the day before, and then it goes from the legitimate marriage of Louis Desiel de Lebreche, cultivateur, means he was a farmer, de la paroisse de Saint-Barnaby, so from the parish of Saint Barnaby, and his wife, Émilie Hébert. So that is exactly the same wording that's here, but there's two different versions, and that's because one of these is the copy that's kept in the parish, and the other one was a copy that was sent to the diocese. So there's almost every Quebec record, there's two different copies. So if one copy was lost, it'll be found in the other one, unless something tragic happened and they were both destroyed. But that's unlikely. It's probably happened in a few cases, but and if you're searching in one place and you can't find it in the other, or if you can't find it, then you should check the other source. So the paid database goes to one place. I think the Ancestry and Family Search use the same, but I could be wrong. Which is which? So someone may correct me. But that's kind of a neat little thing about Quebec records, is you sort of have a double, a safety net there.
Nice.
Anyways, and this handwriting actually is not bad in terms of Quebec handwriting. This is actually pretty legible, as long as you can read French. So there we go. So now we know we have the exact birth record for Pierre.
That's
and so
amazing.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
I love seeing the originals. So
It's very cool.
Very cool. So now that we have that, then we can, so I attached that baptism record, and then he was actually in, so then there's a 1860 census record here, and all the rest of his records are American. And so those are ones that you have done, or were ones that were on this family search page, which I transferred over and then filled out his history a little bit more. But your question was not about his birth record. It was about connecting to his family and his parents and that. So the next step then is to go up. And luckily, because of the year range I gave, that very first record, that 1837 one, turns out that's the marriage of his parents, Louis and Émilie. So now we can find their marriage record, which is right here. Greg? Yes?
You're blocking your microphone with something.
I'm blocking my microphone, so you can't hear it, or I'm making...
Now we hear you right. Yeah.
Oh.
It's okay.
That's weird. How long was I blocked?
Yeah. The last 10 seconds.
That's weird. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyways, here we are. So we found his French records. Here's this is the marriage record for his parents. And I won't go through translating that all, but there it is. Now, one of the other sites that I use is one called PRDH, which stands for, I'm going to click on this link here. So here is the individual record for his father. And PRDH is the Programme de Recherche, and then that last name I can't remember what it stands for offhand. But anyways, it's a sister site. It also requires, it's also a pay site. Now the first one, the Genealogy Quebec, you pay by month for a subscription. This one, you pay by how many records that you view. So you can see up here, I think I paid for 1,000 views because I use it fairly often. And so the more you buy at once, the cheaper they are. And I knew eventually I'm going to get through 1,000. So I've got 502 hits left. So that's kind of nice, because some months I only hit it a few times, and then other months I go nuts. So that's quite cool. And when you're at the individual record, if I click on any of these links, so if I click on this first marriage, he only has the one marriage registered here. There's the family group sheet, basically, for the parents of Pierre. There's Pierre and his birth record in 1840. There's his older sister's birth record, Emilie, and then he has 4 other siblings that are registered there. And there's Louis and Emilie. So turns out, so then with that information, plus with the parents of Louis and the parents of Emilie, I was able to search on WikiTree to see if we could find those records. And turns out that Louis already had a profile on. Yes, he was already there. Now, it was a pretty bare profile. I think it was basically a one-liner. Let's just open up his and just see what it is. Now it's a little bit more. It's a little bit more filled out. But if we go to the changes log, no, I just want to do that. I wanted to. That's basically it. It said there was a list of children from the union of Francois and Françoise Toussaint, a marriage date, and then a link to basically this record, this PRDH record, and that was it. So I added a little bit more information to that, but at least it was there. So that was nice. But Emilie was not there. But what is nice is, so there's her parents, and if I went to like the family sheet here, that will give me the full family group sheet of Emilie, her parents, and her siblings. And turns out that both of her parents, so Peter's maternal grandparents, did exist on WikiTree.
Okay.
So I was able to find them. So then all I had to do was add the profile for Emilie, get her married to Louis, and then add Peter. And I didn't add Peter until this morning because I didn't want to give away. But I have done that now. So now you have the whole family up to the grandparents and whatnot. So so that is there. But it occurred to me, so I'm going to show you the fan chart and how far back we can now go on WikiTree. But before I do that, because I want to say that to the very end, before we do that, I was just wondering, like, why would Louis and Peter and Oliver, take up and leave Quebec? Like, what made them get out of Dodge, sort of thing? So
cold up there.
well, it is cold up there. That's true, but I don't know. Michigan, Ohio, you get a fair bit of snow there too, don't you?
We do.
So I'm not.
My thought was that the land was cheap.
Yes,
they were they were enticing people to move to settle.
That's right. Well, turns out, so I created profiles for all of Peter's siblings. And that actually tells you a story. So first of all, his oldest sister, Emilie, was born and baptized, of course, in Yamashish. And then eventually she ended up down in Michigan as well. Okay. I don't know if you knew that. She married someone named Eli Perry. So you have cousins that come from the Perry line. Okay. So that's how we're the oldest. Then Peter, we're familiar with. Then there was a sister, Odile. She was born in 1942 and passed away in 1944. So she wasn't even 2 years old when she passed away. So she died young. So that was sad. And then there is another brother, he was baptized Sever, which in English would be Severus. as in Severus Snape from
Yeah.
from Harry Potter. Hopefully not quite as evil, but when he moved, so he was the other brother that joined Peter and the father Louis. When they went to the States, eventually there were some records that had Sever in it. There was a record that had he used the name Samuel, and then eventually he settled on Oliver. So I guess Sever, Oliver. I'm not sure how he chose that or how it was chosen for him or whatever, but eventually most of his records will show up as Oliver. His birth record, his marriage record to Mary or Marie Baron, or Mary Baron, I suppose she was probably anglicized at that point. What had Sever, his original name, but the records of his children, all the birth records had gone to Oliver. So at that point, fairly shortly thereafter, he had switched to Oliver. And his profile, you had already created his profile. So so you knew he was a great uncle.
I did, and he's the one who my friend from school. That's her great grandfather.
Ah, there you go.
Great.
Okay. But you hadn't connected them because you didn't know the parents.
Exactly that.
Yes. So now they're connected.
Yeah, great.
Now, is your friend from school, is she on WikiTree?
She is, but she's not an active participant. She's in there, but
okay. But you could still find your relationship with her then. Or well, I mean, you already know the relationship, but you could actually get WikiTree to do that now. And then we have a set of twins, Thomas. And did you know that he had twin brothers?
No. So
2 twins, Thomas and Frederick, were both born in 1847. Now this is the sad tale, and this is, I think, this was the point, or this was the sort of the culminating factor that went into the move, I think. And I'm just surmising this, but Thomas and Frederick were both born on the 7th of January, 1847 in Saint Barnabé, which was the parish, remember, that the parents were from. 2 of them were born on the 7th of January, and sadly, 3 weeks later, on the 28th of January, their mother, Emily, Peter's mother, Emily, passed away. Now, the death record for Emily doesn't say what she died of. It's not like it's not like the coroner's report or the official death record that has cause of death and all that sort of stuff. It just is. It's actually a burial record, a church burial record, not a civil record. And so it just indicated, who she was and where she was buried in the cemetery and whatnot. But so all of a sudden, Louis here has a young family with 2 twin boys who are just newborns, and probably didn't know what to do. And so turns out that the 2 twin boys both show up in the census, in the Canadian census later on. And one was, so Thomas here, this one here, was in the census, and he was living with his uncle. So his uncle raised him along with his grandparents. Now, whether he was originally raised by his grandparents and then they moved into his uncle's house, or he was or his uncle Thomas lived with the grandparents from the get-go. I'm not, it's hard to say. But Thomas is listed as the head of the family, and then the grandparents are with them along with Thomas, this young Thomas. So the census, the 1851 census in Canada, while it was still Lower Canada at that point, or Canada East, lists him as 51. Now, interesting, it says his home was Detroit. So it's somehow they're still connecting him with where his father is living at the time, or the Detroit area. Because I guess where they is part of the diocese, or the larger diocese of Detroit at that time. Okay. But sadly, a few years later, Thomas died as a young boy, and was buried in that home parish. So I don't know if he ever did actually live in the States with his father and brothers. According to this, it looks like he was raised in Canada. And the other brother, Frederick, was also raised in Canada. and there's a number of records from the census of him growing up and whatnot. And he was raised by a neighbor and his wife, and stayed with them and worked on their
Not
farm.
the godparents, then.
What's that?
Not the godparents.
The godparents were Frederic Labreche and Céline Lapron. So probably an uncle was his godfather, but no, it's Isaac Villemur and his wife. Actually, his first wife passed away. So his first wife started, and then after his first wife passed away, his second wife helped raise the family.
Wow.
And there was at least two other girls who didn't have the same last name that they took in. So maybe they were foster parents, or those could have been cousins or nieces or nieces. It's hard to say. But one is Luce Hébert. Remember, Hébert was the maiden name of his mother, so that was I'm guessing that was probably a cousin.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously probably another loving family that took in a young infant son,
Very nice.
So just reading that, I'm just guessing that sort of tragedy, losing one daughter already young, then twin boys being born, and then losing his wife, and especially if land was cheap, makes sense that Louis wanted to take, get a fresh start in life.
Have a do-over, yeah.
Yeah, let's have a do-over. So he went on. So that is how I think they ended up in in the States.
Yeah.
Now there was an interesting where are we here? Interesting note on Louis' Find a Grave site. So let's go back to Louis. Do I have his Find a Grave? I have it linked here. On his Find a Grave site, there was this note, the memorial, that Louis' son, Peter, his second wife's name was Catherine de Settler, or de Settler is how they wrote it anglicized. Catherine's first cousin, Catherine was a first cousin with Louis' second wife, Alice de Settler, and Louis' other son, Oliver, married Marianne Barron, who was this Alice de Settler's daughter from a previous marriage. So we actually have 3 Desiel men who married 3 de Settler women, which is kind of wild. So
Parish.
So kind of fun let's just have a look and see what that looks like. I'm going to switch to the super tree. And okay. Now I'm going to, let's see. Let me go down. I'm going to hide his siblings, and there we go. So let me just zoom in here. So there's Louis. Can you see this okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's Louis, and there's his first wife, Emily, and there's his second wife, Alice. Now, he married Alice in Michigan, and they actually had one son, another Louis.
Oh, okay.
So your great-great-grandfather Peter also has a half-brother named Louis.
Okay.
And Louis.
This is why I would get confused, because I would keep running across the same names.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So if you were thinking, you're looking for the father, but you've also got sort of the half-brother, yeah, no wonder. And he had children of his own one who was named Norman. Norman was the one who reported on his death record, but I think there was more than those. So Alice, his second wife, last name, it's written here as de Settler, but that's not actually what the original French last name is. Peter's second wife. So Peter actually was married twice. So his first wife, her name was Regina Cousineau, and that's how you would actually spell it, Regina Cousineau. Although there is records, I haven't found her original birth record, but there is the family story is that her original first name was actually Reine, which is French for queen. Regina is Latin for queen, and then on many of her records, she actually went by Queen. So one way or another, she was definitely a queen of a woman. But she only had one son with Peter. He was his firstborn, Henry, was born on the 1st of March, and she passed away sometime later in that year. Now, I don't know where, I haven't found a definitive death record for her. So whether it was the same day or just a little bit later, it's hard to say, but she only bore one son. And then his second wife, Catherine de Settler, who was the first cousin of Alice, they had 3 children. So I added profiles. You had Genevieve, who is your direct ancestor. And then I added one for Amelia and Susan, both who are married and have children. So there's additional profiles that can be added in that family line. Just to give you a little work, because I get all from you. And then over here, Sever, who's also known as Oliver, married Mary Barron. And if I click on the in-laws, you can see that Mary Barron, her mother is, look at this, Alice de Settler.
Okay.
So there's how the three men married 3 of the same from the same line there. So I think now we can go through, and now let's just switch to Peter. So this is your great-grandfather, great-great-great-grandfather. Let's switch to the fan chart, and let's see how far back in time we can now go. Okay, so there's his parents that were missing. There's the grandparents. These grandparents were there. They're now all connected, and you can see you can go 5, 6.
Oh my gosh.
7 solid generations with all of your.
Incredible.
So these are from your great, from your 3rd great. So these are your 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th great grandparents at this level. Now, what's amazing, actually, Trina, and other Chris Ferriolo will really appreciate this, is that you have to go 7 generations from your 3rd great grandparent before you get some pedigree collapse. When you have 2 people on the 2 grandparents on different points of your fan chart. So you have Elizabeth Melançon is here, and she's married. And actually Michel Bourg, so I guess it's the couple. Michel Bourg and Elizabeth are here. One of their a daughter, Marguerite, is one of your greats, and their son Michel is another one of your greats. But you have to go 7 generations from your 3rd great is pretty good. The rest of these are all totally unique. And then when we add, we've got most of your 8th generation out, and then all these colors, that means they repeat. So you can see the color patterns. Mm-hmm. Okay, so, and that's totally normal for French Canadian records, because, you know, at some point there's a small number of settlers and they have to intermarry and whatnot. So, but it's far enough out, you don't have to worry about weird things popping up in your genetics. And 10 generations as far as this fan chart does, but you can see there is people there. And if I click on some of them, La Rochelle, Oni, so goes all the way back to France.
Nice.
Isn't that cool?
That's very cool. That's what I was hoping for, to get to France. I also wonder, Dit Labriche obviously was probably a soldier that came to France. Who was that?
That is excellent. You know what? Let's just check out. Let's see. So we have Jean Delgoul came from. So this would be the immigrant. He came from France, born in 1641, Doissau-Guienne, France, and then died in Nouvelle-France. So let's open up his profile. And I have not opened up his profile. Let's see. Migrated from France. Okay, do we have is this on? Okay, so I'm going to have to do a little translating on the spot here for you.
No pressure.
No pressure. So this is interesting. So he was Delgoul de la Brèche. Desiel is not applied to him, but to his descendants. So interesting. So his descendants are the ones that get the Desiel. He was an assistant magasinier, so I think that's like a store owner. Archer, like that doesn't make. From
An archer.
Oh, I don't want to translate into. No, it thinks it's an English word, so it's not going to translate that for me. Archer de la Mer Chose. I don't know. I didn't know Quebec had archers. I mean, they have pretty high walls. I suppose they could have archers there to defend them against the British.
That makes sense. It was still a good way to keep loaded.
That's right. Yeah. This is a marriage record here. No funerals have been identified. 2 entries in Hotel Dieu. So that's the hospital. It doesn't say if he fought anywhere here. It doesn't look like it. These are all. Let's see. Let's see if let's see if it translates that little phrase there. Jean Delgoul, known as La Brèche, who left the ranks of the militia. Oh, there he goes. Left his rifle loaded with lead, which the said Gautier used. Okay, so I guess he was part of the militia. Okay, so
interesting.
Well, it does make sense because many of the initial settlers were either were farmers, but most of them were militia sent over to help populate the new land. So, yeah, I wonder if we could just translate the whole thing, the whole profile to English. There we go.
Yay!
Says he was an archer. There we go. Okay, there's his marriages and whatnot. The graves.
Will it say like that on the page when I can go back and read
No.
No.
The default will always be the language that's written in WikiTree. But like you can do with many pages now on any browser, if you just right click on some, I just usually just grab a white space because otherwise it just does the word that you're on, right? Yeah. But if you find some white space and then hit right click and then go down to translate.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of a quick way to get around that.
Awesome.
So now, of course, it's using Google Translate, so it may not be the best. It may misinterpret some words, especially if it's a word that has 2 different meanings.
Right.
But you can just definitely get a sense of what it says. So there you go.
Thank you so much. Oh my word. This is great.
Yeah. So
I'm excited to read through
all
these.
Lots of good stuff. There's some suggestions in there, like changing his last name at birth, Pierre's last name at birth.
Yeah, I probably mangled it.
Well, you didn't actually have his original birth record, so you did a very good job of guessing what it was. But I recommend we switch it to the proper one.
Okay.
And then there's lots of other things you can add. Like now you've got all of his siblings. so you can add a few generations down until you get closer to the present. So, and there's also, I don't know if you noticed, but if we open up his profile again, there are some DNA links. Well, not, it might take a while for the DNA to percolate since I've added them. But if I go to Louis, or yeah, so there's some cousins. Oh, is that your cousin?
Yeah, that's the woman I went to school with.
Right. But
Yeah.
and do you know this one?
No.
Okay, there's another cousin you can check out and see. So another WikiTree who could be a cousin of yours.
Nice.
So very good. So there you have it.
Thanks.
Happy Elfmas.
You're a wonderful elf. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome.
All your hard work.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Trina,
Yeah.
how much has your CC7 jumped up?
I have no idea, but I bet it's I bet it's got a little explosion.
And just asked that, and I was going to say, Greg, did you note her CC7 before you added?
No, I did.
Before you connected, and I didn't think to say, "Oh, Greg, maybe make a note of it before you connect them, and then after they get connected, see how much it explodes."
I can look at last week and see what it said.
Oh, right.
Yes, you can see it.
Right. In the daily or the weekly email, it tells you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Whew. Oh, I almost messed up there. What's that?
552 last week.
Okay. And
So I don't know what it would be now.
Well, let's see. If we go to okay, this is, let's see. Let's find Peter. Because you're the profile manager on Peter. So then that takes me to you. 588. So what was it before?
552.
552.
Wow.
Okay.
So about 33.
Yeah. Well, this was the third great great grandfather. So it was already at 6, anyways, five
Right.
away. But yeah.
I still am struggling with what that actually means, honestly. I click on that every now and then. I'm like, oh, something happened. Somebody added something. That's about all I get out of it, really. So I'm not sure what that entails or what
the
that
CC7
indicates. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the CC7 is just basically a calculation of your close connections. So a distance of 1 are people who are immediately connected to you. So your spouse, your parents, and your children.
Okay.
Okay. And then your CC2, the second degree, is their spouses, parents, or children. So and in any order. So your spouse's parents, so your in-laws would be 2 degrees from you. Your children's children, your parents' siblings, all of those would be people who are 2 degrees from you. And then 3 degrees would be taking all of those people and adding their parents, spouses, and children. And so it goes. So you can actually have someone who's 7 degrees from you, who is your father's brothers, wives, sisters, husbands, child. You're like you can go through a bunch of different sort of marriages. They're not necessarily all. In fact, most of them will probably not all be blood relations, but if they're connected in any way, then that gives you 7 degrees. So yeah, by making that connection between Peter or Pierre and his parents, then all of a sudden all of those connections now been added out. But because you're probably such a high degree already, that's sort of limited. But if we were to count your CC9 and CC10 or whatever, then that would have definitely been an explosion of epic proportions.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, Thank you for joining us today, Trina. It's always fun to unveil a wish, with the wisher here to see and to react.
That was great.
Good. Well,
I'm looking
and
forward
thanks to Vicky and Kathy keeping me company and on
Thank
track mostly.
I just want to do a quick reminder to elves about the categories.
Mhm.
If you see the hold request template for listed in the category, please remove it because it's been showing up on the suggestions.
Okay.
So I'll try and go through those later today and see if I can find more and remove those. And then I came across a couple of profiles that had it in the wish received category and also the check it twice. So we're removing the wish received when we put it in the check it twice, correct?
Yes.
So just one category.
One category per wish. Yes.
Yeah.
And so, do we know what the current total is? Like, how many have been completed? It was 30 something, I think.
I haven't checked.
Okay. Maybe we'll give an update on the stats tomorrow in tomorrow's.
Good idea.
Okay.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Can I ask, will this be recorded somewhere so I could share it with other people? Or?
Yes, it's gone live on YouTube, and so it will be available for viewing afterwards on YouTube. So
Awesome.
check it out there. Yeah. Send it out to all your family, and get them on WikiTree.
Right. I've tried a couple.
That's great. Thanks everyone for coming out and joining us and watching us live. And thank you for those who are watching after the fact. And we will be back here for the 5th day of Elfmas tomorrow. And we'll be talking about some Italian records then. So
Oh, yes.
Thanks, Elves. I appreciate it.
Thanks again.
Bye.
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 Bye.